is available for review at the link there. I added one item, which is just something I've been, that's related to an IDC analyst discussion. I'm going to update people on and get feedback. Otherwise, we were going to go through OSS stuff. Do we have a sheet that we can talk through yet?
We don't, but I should have that by the end of the week.
Okay.
So yeah.
Let's take that off then.
Yeah. Yeah, we should probably, we'll review that in next meeting.
Is Ben, oh yeah, Ben just joined. Ben, do you have anything on OSS Europe you want to cover? Or Stefano said we're still waiting, we don't have the like sheet and stuff yet. Ben, are you there?
Yep, I just joined.
Okay. I just asked a question. Is there anything you want to cover on OSS Europe, or should we table that since you don't have a sheet yet to like sign up for anything? Or
Yep, let's table it.
Yep, and I told him we'll have that by the end of the week.
Okay. I have more time in here to do, you know, we did have the discussion of the Lisa 21 at the TAC. And then, you know, we can do, I don't know, if we have the spreadsheet available to go through any of the events that have been submitted. Ava, do you know? Because I think that was Stephanie who was doing that, right?
I have no updates from Stephanie on that from last week.
Okay, well, if Stephanie joins, we can do that. You could give a quick update on the TAC. TAC basically said go forward with, you know, Lisa 21, but there's nothing for them to do yet, right? So
right.
They were supportive. They accepted the recommendation to submit something.
Yeah, and there's no action for us to do on that either at this point.
Okay. Is there anything else that anyone would like to cover on the agenda? Because it's fairly late today now that those things are gone.
I actually, sorry, I was just trying to get to the unmute button. I'm talking to Kat Ullman, who's one of the program chairs for Lisa, just to make sure. So she and I are kibitzing back and forth on a couple of things, and I was just going to ask, are there specific questions that we want answered with respect to Lisa?
When is the call for papers going to be?
Yeah, okay.
That's one. And in the past, they've wanted, well, I guess, will a desire for a paper or white paper to go along with the talk be present this year or not? And then I think the question for the TAC will be, what kind of presentation does the TAC want to submit?
Yeah, panel versus like session.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, is there anything else people want to put on the agenda? No, okay. Let's do roll call. Do we have quorum, Stefano? I don't think so.
Nope, I believe we are short one.
Okay, we'll have to table that. We're piling up the minutes to approve. We have 2 today, so we'll have to table that. Let's do the action item review.
Hey, Seth, sorry, this is Ben. Can I interject? I'm wondering, we've had this problem where we're getting a lot of people not meeting quorum. Is this an issue we can add to the agenda to discuss? If there's something we can do about it.
We can discuss it now. I mean, I think we talked about it last meeting and we wanted to kind of, you know, I think we've added some members who don't attend outreach that are Premier members. So that makes it harder to achieve quorum. So I guess you know, we need to get Ant and Huawei and let's see see who else is not here regularly. Michael Chang from Facebook. So I don't know. Stephen, any ideas on how to get a little more participation from the Premier members so we start achieving quorum?
I will reach out to Michael and Alyssa and Song Min. Remind me, was Howard attending for a while from Huawei?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so I will quickly reach out to the four of them, but the other two that I will nudge. Actually, it might come better from you. Is trying to figure out where Stephanie and Jesse have gone.
Jesse's here.
My apologies, Jesse.
I'm here every week, man.
Yeah, he's been here.
I thought you were, and when I looked a moment ago, I am still waking up, and I did not see
Oh
you.
no, I had to drop for a second because I had a bad connection, but I'm normally here.
Okay, well, thank you, because I thought so, and that's why I was very confused.
Okay.
I do have one more item for the agenda now that my coffee's kicking in. Stefano recently sent out a project survey to OESDK at least, and I'm not sure if that falls as a outreach question or a tack question, but might be one for us to discuss anyway. Do we want the leadership survey answered once per project or once per member of the project leadership team?
Also a good question for the surveys that went out to the members.
Yeah.
You want it answered once, like a consolidated answer, or just everybody who's involved sends their answers? I would like for Fortanix, we kind of communicated and we're like, okay, let's consolidate our answers, which we haven't done yet, but that was what we were thinking. Since there are no, shall we just discuss that now?
Yeah. Let's add that to the agenda.
Great. Let's make that the first thing then after we get through action items. We'll just go down the list. Any changes on 1?
No, you can keep one on there.
2? These are kind of like, I think this one, Stephen was gonna, I always copy and paste them from the minutes, but it seems like some of the changes we made. I think Stephen, we were gonna have you do this one. I mean, this has been taken off, I think. The idea was, let's get in touch with the open source enclave people, right? And follow up with them, which I was gonna leave to you.
That was on me, and I have not done that. My apologies, folks.
This one's on me, no change for 4. This one is very similar to the number 3, so I assume there's no change in that one as well. Stephen, number 5. Okay. Stephen, Stefano on the 6.
I did start reaching out to projects in terms of getting them to do a video for Open Source Summit. So yeah, I should hear back, I'm guessing, in the next week or so.
Okay. Number 7, that was done, correct?
Yeah, number 7 is done. I'll send a note to the to both mailing lists today.
Okay.
Oh, I did number 8 too. Indeed, you can. They don't specifically have pre-recording webinar features, so to speak, but because you can play a video, there's a way to optimize Zoom for video playback. So you have to enable that, and then you play a video, and you essentially treat it like a normal webinar, where instead of sharing your screen, you share a video. But there is no like dedicated functionality there. Like there's no button that says play video for a group.
Okay. Well, I think I I sent out some communication to the speakers on the webinar, and there's some time to talk about that later. So I think that can be just a decision, you know, whether we do it live or pre-recorded once we get the speakers together.
Sure.
There's no change in like the landing page or anything though, based on
No, everything is the same. Yeah.
Okay. Number 9, I don't recall the context of that. Ben, do you remember what this is? It's from the minutes.
Yeah, I think I remember half the context. I was going to look. You were asking last time about going, having different projects and stuff look into events that we're gonna, where we might be talking, well, events. And the context I forgot was it about confidential computing or just general? I mean, Anarchs obviously is confidential computing. And I think Red Hat events was just an idea of other open source events we should be considering.
So this is like building the list in the spreadsheet, basically.
I think that's what that was. So.
Okay.
Yep, I agree.
I have a question about 10. I have not seen 10 before. My apologies for not being a little better prepared. How was
It
this?
came up last week when you weren't here, and I believe Ava highlighted that the same, you know, like Don Song is doing this other event.
So this is a different other event.
Yes.
Yes.
Ah.
And it's very confidential computing related, and you know, we weren't aware of it or hadn't coordinated with them on it. So it was kind of like, while you're following up.
I get it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Why don't we don't have a slide for it, so I'll just stay here, but why don't we discuss the logistics of the project survey? So Stefano, do you want to answer?
Sure. Yeah, so just in terms of how I've been approaching it, we're happy to have people respond to the survey in whatever way they think makes the most sense. So for example, from OESDK, it sounds like their maintainers don't have a ton of interaction with CCC. So having them get together and sort of respond as one group on one survey response makes a lot of sense. Whereas for their community, it does make sense for them to send it to a list and have everybody respond. Likewise, for surveying for surveying membership, I could see a company like Fortanix wanting to say, like, let's just get together and answer the survey. Whereas you've got several folks from, I'm going to pick on Intel. You've got several folks from Intel, like Jesse and Simon, who may have different perspectives as to how the CCC is doing. And we don't want them to get together and get sort of curve their responses based on a group opinion, but rather we'd rather get responses from each person. And when I say we, I'm talking about the PMs at the Linux Foundation, because that's who got together and talked about this.
Yeah, you know, to me, either is fine, right? The point is consistency, right? I mean, if we want each member organization to come with a single vote, then we'll get, 20 votes and they'll all have equal value. If we want everybody who's engaging with the CCC individually to come in with a vote, some organizations are obviously going to have more perspectives represented than others. As long as we're consistent, I can go either way.
So hang on a second. We're not voting on something here. This is a survey.
Oh,
right?
Well, all right. That's a semantic. I mean,
It's
expressing a viewpoint and consolidating them all together.
One of the things that that we talked about was the fact that you're not going to get a response such that you can give yourself a grade of, we did 85% on customer satisfaction, like that sort of thing. What we're really looking for is, and the example I used in the meeting I was in was, let's say you have one company where everybody's happy and they submit one survey response saying, yep, you're doing great. And company B submits 12 angry responses. That looks like it's heavily weighted toward the everybody's unhappy. So you really can't look at it in terms of like a percentage of how you're doing. What you do get out of that is hopefully in those like comment more boxes underneath the answers to why you're not doing well. So if you get 12 angry responses and they all comment that these are the same 12 reasons we're unhappy, then you basically count that as one unhappiness, with the item being what they commented on. Whereas if you get 12 different types of we're unhappy and here are 12 different reasons, then those 12 angry responses have much more value.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So I
and that's
see-
probably what you were getting at, Ava, right? It's
Yes,
just that
exactly.
we're not measuring it to make a fact-based decision. We're just using it to find ideas of things that we could do differently
In
or
which
better.
case,
It is a sentiment
better to have
survey, not a vote based on, you know, how many seats one company has at the table. We're not tipping the scales. No one's getting preferential anything.
Mhm.
But this is a way to understand how the people in our community are feeling about the governance that they have subjected themselves to.
Yeah.
And for that, even though Stefan, I think you were referring to Simon's response regarding the OESEK community, I would be interested, and I want to put this out there for others to think about in their own communities or companies. If we go the path of trying to consolidate answers, chances are I would end up being the one who ferries those answers from the OESTK governance to the sort of leadership survey response. I would be concerned that it would end up reflecting my views more than the views of other members of the OESTK Community Governance Council.
Yeah, I'd say like even for me, like Stefano, you gave the example of Fortanix, but like I'm gonna have very different perspective than Jethro, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it's valuable, and as the product lead, I want the results that are not censored by going through my hands or being exposed to my eyes. If people in any way felt that I was doing a bad job, I want that to surface up too. And there's so many ways in which observability changes people's responses. Not that I think I'm doing a bad job, of course, I'm doing a great job.
I really agree with Dave on this one. I think many more people participating and having the full anonymity, at least, you know, within the project. So it's going to like Stefano, which we're going to call as unbiased here. I think that is going to give us better data, more information, and allow us to move forward and improve ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing I would say though is, again, I think consistency is the most important thing, and I think it'd probably be good to resend it out to the group and clarify that, because I'm sure we were all wondering, and some of us went one way and some of us went the other way on whether we should be consolidating or not.
Yep, can do. I can clarify that later today.
That is why I wanted to bring it up.
okay, good discussion. Okay, let's move on. I wanted to update people on something that came up. Mike Purcell sent an email to myself, I think Steven, maybe Stefano, asking if anybody had any total addressable market information for confidential computing. I did a little research. Neither Gartner nor IDC nor anybody else, I think, have confidential computing total addressable market. I wouldn't expect them to at this point in the market. What I did do was I checked to see, you know, IDC is generally considered like the main, the most thorough kind of forecaster of this kind of stuff as an analyst firm. So I had a quick call with an IDC person to see if it's possible to do a commissioned report on addressable market for confidential computing, or a forecast, kind of like what you see on the right. And they said it is possible, and they set up a meeting with the two kind of people. One's like the analyst, one's the person who does like the commission projects. So I wanted to like surface this before I do that meeting, because if you know, there were any objections or anything, I don't want to waste my time doing that. But I want to get people's thoughts on whether this is a good idea to continue exploring. It will be very pricey. I don't know what that number is yet, but I could also see it being very valuable. Obviously, you know, all of our companies are doing something in confidential computing, and having an independent, you know, analyst say that, you know, in 5 years, this is going to be X size of a market, you know, can be helpful in many different respects, whether it's startup companies doing fundraising, or whether you're justifying, you know, investment in confidential computing related projects inside, you know, a larger company. I think this is a valuable thing to have. And I think it's something that won't be created until we get to a much larger size, if the CCC doesn't get to a much larger size of a market, and, you know, unless the CCC commissions it. So let me stop there and pause for thoughts.
So I guess one question I would have is, if we consider doing this, I do think it's a good idea for doing it. Are we also then looking at making this a regular activity, where we're going to make this like an annual report and we'll continue?
Well, we would have the option to do that. It wouldn't be required, but, you know, it could be like the annual, you know, confidential computing forecast, and that's one of the pieces of content that we have over and over again, and they update it once a year or something. That's an option.
Yeah.
I would decide that before doing the first one, if we were to do it.
Well, the only reason why I consider deciding that is if our intention is to do that, and obviously you have to kind of, you know, do something and then evaluate how much value. It might play a little bit into the pricing with IDC if that's our intention to go forward.
Yeah, if we wanted to sign a multi-year contract to do it like for 3 years or something, they might give you a break on doing it the first time.
Yep.
We might struggle as a small organization to sign a multi-year contract, but we could maybe you know, plan for readdressing at some point. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I think this question of what, you know, of the actual size of this potential market is one that, you know, we're highly interested in, and it has been difficult to measure. We've made a lot of effort, or a lot of progress, in just getting the analysts to acknowledge that it is something, but we have not, you know, found a measurement yet. So I think we'd be interested. I'm guessing a lot of the others would be interested in this as well. I think for me, the question is, when we say it'll be expensive, you know, what are we talking about? And is it in the realm of what we as a consortium can afford, or is this going to be some special effort kind of from members to have to?
I think this would be within the realm of what the consortium could afford, but it will be. So here's the meeting on Tuesday that I've scheduled, is to figure out what the scope of the project is, and then they'll give me a price, basically. If I had to guess, I'd say it's somewhere in the $20,000 to $60,000 range, which is a big range. So that would be my guess. Because they are doing original research, right? They don't have this data. So they're going to be creating some kind of model based on other data that they have. For example, you could take, you know, an approach might be, okay, you take cloud computing data and you look at how many VMs there are. You look at the difference in pricing between a confidential computing VM and a normal VM, and then model some kind of percentage of the total population of, you know, and then that produces a number, right? So they're going to have to do stuff like that, like create models, source from existing related data and the use cases that they.
So I guess I missed the details or I mean, I hadn't previously known about the meeting. I can tell you Intel would be interested in participating in this. And in fact, we have a market analysis team that, you know, does a lot of work with IDC and Gartner and others. And I could bring somebody in who's used to doing this stuff with them and, you know, for additional perspective and feedback.
Okay, well, I think the meeting on Tuesday would just be to like, okay, what do you want as the output? And then I think after that, there will be lots of kind of, okay, how are you actually going to go about this? Like, you know, the scenario I just talked about, at which point I think it would be very useful to have people from member companies who have been involved in those kind of activities before involved.
Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful way to handle it, because you should be able to, once we've committed to it, being able to quickly go back to cloud service providers that are members, the hardware members, and drum up those kinds of internal contacts that, you know, Jesse's familiar with. I have to believe we have somebody in the CSP world in Azure that would be the right person to touch, so that IDC gets really clean modeling data, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the members have some of this data internally, right? So that would be useful to them. And then also just like the approach to doing the modeling, I'm sure a lot of members would have input on.
But I had my hand up for a stupid question. How public can we make the report after the fact, or what kinds of quotable
That's
things?
what we're paying for, is to commission a report that we can make available to the public. So we could make it completely wide open once you pay for it.
Okay.
So
yeah, I would argue that would be the whole purpose of it. So
Yeah,
that's kind of where I was going. Thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I would hate to think that we spent, you know, $50,000-$60,000 to get a report that we can not be able to share all of that wonderful data.
No, that's the reason. That would be the reason for paying the money, is not just is the license plus the work they do to produce it.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like we have generally like positive feedback on moving forward. So I'll figure out what the price is and kind of what they say they can include, and bring it back to the committee, and then we can decide whether we want to do it or not at whatever the price is, or if we want to ask them for adjustments, and then go from there in terms of the production of the report if we approve it.
With our membership, they should give us a discount as a nonprofit, but giving them access to such phenomenal members.
Yeah, I've already pleaded, you know, poverty and, but
access to the members.
So yeah, we can. I'll see where we're at after this Tuesday meeting. Is just like a half-hour kind of quick meeting to check in on the output of this. So I think it could be very valuable, you know, be very valuable to my company for sure to get something like this. So
It sounds like a hugely valuable thing. And I was scared when you first said we don't have a number, that you were going to say like 150. Whereas
I don't know, it could come back. I mean, that's on the upper end of what they would charge for anything.
right.
So I would hope it's not that kind of.
Right.
You can also kind of like work with them, because it's a custom project, to scope it down to, you know, try to get the number more reasonable if they come back with some huge number. So
Right. Okay.
You know, you dig into
those numbers are the same type of numbers we do.
Right.
Those are the same types of numbers that we would use at Red Hat. I mean, that seems very reasonable for this type of work, and unless it would only be more as if we really wanted to ask for a lot more detail and depth, and maybe that's fine, but maybe we don't do that in the first year.
Next year.
Yeah. For example, like if you were to, like a company just commissioning a white paper, it would be like $20,000 with like no net new numbers or research, right? That's why I gave that number on the low
Okay.
end. You know, I would expect this to be more in the towards the high end of the 20 to 60,000, at least what they initially come back with. But
No, but I just think this becomes a really powerful vehicle. You know, as you know, Jesse's clearly willing to get Intel involved. I have to assume that we can find the right folks at Azure. When you bring it across the membership, it's an opportunity for the members to actually have those kinds of discussions where we might not have those discussions here in something like outreach or at the board, because this is, these are kind of our own very confidential numbers, but allowing IDC to act as that intermediary, that we might be more willing to you know, open our respective kimonos to share with IDC to come up with more generalized and highly useful numbers is a powerful idea.
maybe we can all put our confidential numbers into a TEE and let only IDC.
There you go.
I love it.
That makes too much sense.
Okay, I will report back on that then. We're going to skip the OSS Europe. We're going to skip the event planning. Let's have some discussion around the webinar. And let me pull up the, okay, so I think Mike had some comments. So let me just recap what I've done so far. I sent out an email yesterday to the speakers that we talked about the last time, which are basically in line with the people who did the analyst stuff. Dave and Mike confirmed that they could do the. Okay, so let's talk about that date too. Confirmed that they could do it on that date. Now I think we need to discuss the date because I had no idea we picked election day. So anyway, Mike added some comments to the abstract that we reviewed yesterday. So I'll just bring those up, and I accepted them. They were pretty minor in the abstract. And then I think there was a little misunderstanding around what the list of speakers was intended for. So I responded to Mike on those. So I'll go over that. I think we should definitely discuss the date, given the election day thing that I don't know, Stefano or Ben or somebody pointed out earlier. So maybe we can start with that. What do people think about a change of date given the election day? I don't think the day after election is a good day either. Maybe we should go to the following week. Thoughts?
Might give us all
That's
something
probably
to
good.
actually do on election day. Nobody's going to be doing any work.
Yeah, but I
The
guess
question is, would you have lower attendance if you did it on election day, which
Oh, it's an attendance thing, right? I'm always thinking about the assets afterwards.
it's less about the convenience to the speakers and more about the result of the webinar.
Right.
So, I mean,
Let me know the date. I don't have an opinion or a good guess for a date, so I'll let you guys choose it. But
Is this one of those things that, like, the rule of thumb is you don't do it on a Monday?
yeah, the rule of thumb is you don't do them on Mondays or Fridays. When Tuesdays through Thursdays are usually fine. So we could do it on the 5th. But so that would be another option, or we could, you could go to like the next, like the 10th or something. Anybody else?
Should we just do this based on availability of the members? Check on the 5th. It seems to me 5th or 10th are both fine from a, you know, deconfliction standpoint. So just whatever has people available.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, let me just review quickly the changes. Let's see. So the only thing he changed or suggested changing was moving like experts from the confidential computing consortium instead of confidential computing consortium experts, which seemed fine to me as a change. And then he had a, he thought this was being like listed on the landing page. So I think he had some questions around like the terminology here. So it looks like he's already responded that sounds good. So anyway, the intent here was just to give people like an idea of who's talking about what, and not, we would just list the speakers on the landing page, not these intro to CCC, CC properties, all of that. So those were the only changes. Any objections to those? They seem pretty minor, so I just accepted them. This date, we need to put a note on.
When you get a second, can you scroll down just a second? I want to see the key topics, bullets, and the technical speakers at the same time, because what I'm looking for is the section on the white paper that's the using application SDKs versus runtime deployment systems. There's that bullet. And which of the bolded topics would you fit that one under? Because that wasn't part of the analyst briefing deck, it's just part of the outreach white paper, right? So
yeah, so I think as long as, I think the important thing is we are okay with these, because that's what's on the landing page.
Right, but some of those are going to have to come up with new content for in slide format, which may just be taking white paper content and moving it to.
Exactly. So I was thinking that there'll need to be some, you know, maybe 20% of the content.
Yeah.
Added or revised or updated based on the white paper. And you can pull from the TAC white paper if you have stuff there.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to figure out which things might be assigned to me and which things, you know, might be assigned to Mike and so on. So
you're kind of on the first two sections, right?
Right. The third one is Mike.
The third one is Mike.
It's the fourth one that I'm asking about right now, which was not in the analyst briefing before. Because the other one's there.
Yeah, let's discuss that when we get the speakers together.
Okay. Because like I said, I would be happy to do it, but I'm just saying we need to exercise where we make sure that if those are the ones that are being advertised, that we make sure that we're making assignments as to who's going to create that content, or at least, you know, port that content into slide form. So.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, one of the questions I had, and I fully recognize that this is sort of sensitive, but are these speakers speaking on behalf of the consortium or on behalf of their organization?
So this is consortium, just like
because with some, yeah, okay, because with so they're going to need to speak then broadly to basically the stuff that's in the white paper.
Yeah,
because some of the representatives we have here have a pretty limited scope.
Yeah, so the for example, and all of the content for the analyst meetings was kind of like vetted by the TAC and here, you know, in the outreach committee. So the idea is to stick to the content as it's been approved by the CCC and not, you know, go off on, you know, in one direction or another based on the vendor that you happen to be working for. So like in this ecosystem one, for example, Ava has a full survey of all the products, right? And open source projects. It's not only ones related to Microsoft. And, you know, in the use cases, you know, those were contributed by everybody, even though, you know, Nelly was the one who delivered it.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, the intent is for this to represent the CCC's work and not the opinions of the individual vendors that people work for. And I think we did a good job of that on the analyst briefings. There wasn't a lot of, there were some questions from the analysts that got down to specific vendor things. And then we allowed each person to answer those kind of as if they, you know, from the vendor perspective, but we were very clear about, okay, this is the answer from, you know, Intel or Microsoft or Google or whoever, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So I think we would take a similar approach. Like if everything should be super neutral, if there's a question about, you know, Microsoft or Google, you know, in the Q&A section, then, and there happens to be a person from that company there, they can answer that question. Or take it offline and answer offline. Okay, so I think the next step, and Dave, since you're here, and thank you for attending, by the way, do you have a preference on the date?
No, I'm available on either the 5th or the 10th. I can make either of those work, so that's why I didn't speak up.
Okay.
Same here.
That was Stephen.
Yes, it was. Sorry.
I'm still assuming it would be 8:30 a.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, I think that's the best.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I verified that for that particular time, I could make either the 5th or the 10th work.
Okay, great. I'll send an email back out to the group. Once people confirm their participation, then I'll set up a content discussion separate meeting. Okay, let's go back here. I wanted, yeah.
Seth, I wonder, since it says Seth is confirmed too, do you want to add yourself to that note and on the 5th and the 10th to say you're available? Or do you still have to confirm?
I still have to confirm, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay, just checking. Since you asked me, I figured I'd turn it around. So
yeah, let me check my calendar just to make sure. But I don't think I will have anything booked. Okay, so let's talk about promotions. You know, I think, you know, we had discussed previously asking members to, you know, kind of do social posts and or emails, so we can create some sample ones and then make an ask of members. We can get people to post it on their Bright Talk channels, and I'll figure that out. That doesn't involve any cost to us. I wanted to find out if anybody had any other suggestions on how to promote it, because it is, we have, you know, like very little, other than, you know, obviously sending an email to our very small database.
I'm certainly happy to promote it on the IETF working group list for TEE provisioning.
Okay.
And that will just hit a bunch of engineers as opposed to, so it's a very specific audience, right? Where it may not be the main audience you're targeting, but at least we'll get it out to a number of other researchers and developers and security.
Well, chunk of our audience is developers,
yeah.
right? So that's good.
Yeah.
Are there any other similar bodies that other people belong to, or that might be, you know, we send it to the list, like, hey, there's a webinar on this topic from the CCC?
Other relevant bodies that are perhaps farther, you know, one step away from our scope would be things like the Trusted Computing Group, Global Platform, FIDO, you know, organizations like that.
Maybe some of the blockchain.
Yep.
What did you say the second one?
So Trusted Computing Group, Global Platform. That's the one that does, you know, secure elements and things that even, you know, ARM platforms conform to. FIDO Alliance, which does identity, you know, authentication. I think those are the three main ones that I thought of. That if there's, because those are the ones that have come up in like the diagrams from that we did from the TAC that says here's the overall space and here's what other organizations. Oh, Then there's ones that deal specifically with open source, like trustedfirmware.org, which is not a standards org, it's another open source org, more like CCC is.
Okay. Maybe Hyperledger too?
Yeah, I was going to ask for LF organizations, is there, Stefano, is there an easier way to kind of like let your peers and stuff know about this to see if it's relevant to have it sent to their constituents?
Yeah, certainly. I'll ping the other PMs. So for Hyperledger, and then I can let the RISC-V security folks know.
Specifically, CNCF might be, they have a huge reach, but there's also growing interest on things confidential
Yeah, I'll
in their
ping.
world. So they'd be a kind of a separate one to reach out to.
Yeah, I'll ping Kim and see who at CNCF would be the best person to talk to.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So.
And definitely OpenSSF too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're still getting up and running. I'm not sure that they have a group for that yet, but no, SSF.
They have some pre-existing infrastructure since they are not. The LF piece is net new, but they have organizations.
It's a good suggestion. I wasn't questioning. I'm just questioning their readiness.
Okay.
Well, they have infrastructure from before. They're not entirely net new, right?
Okay. Well, I
I
think
talk. We might be talking about different things here, but yeah.
one other thing I wanted to bring up was whether this might be a good point to improve our PowerPoint template and graphics in the analyst deck. I know we have, Dave, I think you already had the, for the white paper, some graphics being worked on for the little Venn diagram of the categories. Like, I have very high standards on PowerPoint templates, and our current one is terrible. I don't know if people care that much or not, but I could, you know, for maybe like $1,000 for a contractor, have like a kick-ass PowerPoint template instead of what we have now. So any thoughts on that? Like, for example, that's what a sub-bullet looks like. And if you put 2 sub-bullets on a page, you have no more room left. You know, all sorts of like table styles and all of this stuff is all messed up. So I don't think LF Creative's strong suit is PowerPoint templates.
Yeah, I can ping him and see. I've noticed that issue before as well. So unfortunately, I think we might have gotten slide templates that were filtered through our legal department, which means it may have gotten a little jumbled as everyone opened it in their own PowerPoint version and saved it. So yeah, let me ping LF Creative and see if they've got something that's a little more stable.
If they're aware that it's bad and they can fix it as part of our contract, that's great.
My guess is it just got messed up somewhere.
If they don't have the expertise to do it, then, you know, I would.
And let's pay for the experts. Sure.
Yeah, sure. Let me reach out to them and see what they say.
Okay. So I think the next step is let's lock down the date. Let's get the landing page created. Those are both, the date is on me, and then I need to communicate with Stefano. We'll get the landing page created, and then I think it would be, we'll need to get some, you know, like social posts drafted, an email created to start promoting it. And then I would really like everybody's help to kind of reach out to organizations that they know to start getting it promoted. You know, pushing it out a few days will also give us a few more days to promote. So that will be helpful. So thank you for all of that. Any other questions on the webinar before we just talk about next meeting? Okay, so next meeting, we have the OSS Europe case So, okay. Europe, planning. We had, what was the other thing? Oh, the events and CFP review based on the spreadsheet. Report back on IDC, TAM, pricing, and options. Any other topics people would like to get on the agenda for next week? No? Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. Send me an email if you think of anything that we want to put on the agenda for next week. And Stephen, it'll be useful if we can chase some of the non-participating members so we can actually approve some minutes at some point.
Agreed.
And also get the benefit of their participation. Okay, thank you. We can adjourn a few minutes early then. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care, folks.
Bye-bye.